You know that feeling, right? You spend months, maybe even years, trying to learn a new language. You memorize all the words, you drill the grammar rules, but then the moment you try to actually speak to someone, it just falls apart. It's so frustrating. But what if I told you the problem isn't you? What if it's the method itself? Today, we're going to dive into a totally different way of thinking about language, one that unlocks the natural, built-in ability your brain already has. So, let's start with the big question. Why does this feel so incredibly hard for us as adults when kids just seem to soak up languages like little sponges? Well, it turns out there's a real scientific reason for that. And once you understand it, it'll change your entire approach to learning. Now, the ideas we're exploring today come from this guy, Dr. Stephen Krashen. He's a giant in the world of language education. And his whole theory, which is still incredibly influential, is that our brains have a special, dedicated system just for language. It's not just another skill like riding a bike, it's its own unique biological function. Okay, so what's the big problem we're all running into? Well, to put it simply, most of us are trying to learn a language with the wrong set of tools. We treat it like a subject in school, something we have to consciously study and memorize. But our brains, they're actually wired for something completely different. This right here is the absolute core of the whole idea. See, our brain has two systems. On one side, you have conscious learning. That's what you use for math or learning to type. But language belongs in this other bucket, subconscious acquisition. It's the exact same system you use to effortlessly pick up your native language as a kid without a single textbook. And that's the crucial takeaway. We need to stop learning a language and start acquiring it. So how in the world do we tap into that subconscious system? Well, it turns out every single one of us is born with a secret weapon. It's this incredibly powerful, innate tool that's just sitting there, waiting to be turned on no matter how old you are. And here it is. Meet the hero of our story, the Language Acquisition Device, or LAD for short. Now, this isn't just some cute metaphor. According to the theory, it's a real specialized part of your brain designed for one single purpose: acquiring language. It's the engine that got you fluent in your first language, and the best news is, it never goes away. It's still there. Think of it like this. Your brain has a general-purpose processor it uses for most day-to-day tasks. But for language, it has this high-performance, super specialized engine. The whole trick is just figuring out how to switch this engine on and give it the right kind of fuel. So, if the LAD is the hardware, then Universal Grammar is like the operating system that comes pre-installed. It's this innate skeletal framework of rules that are common to all human languages. Your brain isn't starting from scratch. It already has a blueprint for what a language is supposed to look like. So when you're exposed to, say, Spanish or Japanese, your LAD just gets to work. It starts taking that universal skeleton and dressing it with the specific flesh of the new language. Its unique sounds, its vocabulary, its grammar. This is precisely how children do it so fast. Okay, so we've got this amazing device in our heads. We know it works. What's the ignition key? What's the fuel that makes it run? It's something surprisingly simple, a concept called comprehensible input. This, right here, is the single most important takeaway from all of this. The only thing that activates your LAD is input, listening and reading, that you can understand. Not perfectly, you don't have to know every single word, but you have to get the gist of the message. When your brain understands the meaning, the LAD automatically, subconsciously, does the hard work of analyzing the language for you. This dam analogy is just a perfect way to picture what's happening. I mean, you can't expect a power plant to generate electricity if the reservoir is empty, can you? It's the exact same thing with language. You have to fill your brain's reservoir with massive amounts of understandable input before you can expect fluent output, like speaking and writing, to just flow out naturally. But listen, not all input is created equal. First, it has to be understandable. That's non-negotiable. Second, and this is just as crucial, it has to be interesting to you. If you're bored, your brain just tunes out. In fact, things like tedious grammar drills can actually shut your LAD down, making them worse than useless. All right, let's talk about grammar, the part everyone dreads. The good news is we need to completely rethink its role. It's not the enemy we think it is, it's just a tool, and most of us have been using it completely wrong. It really helps to think of grammar in two different ways. There's the conscious grammar you study from a book, like a math formula. It's slow, it's clunky, and it's almost impossible to use in a fast, real-time conversation. Then there's the subconscious grammar your brain just absorbs from all that input. That's how you speak your native language perfectly without thinking about rules. And that is the goal. So where does that leave conscious studying? Well, it has a small supporting role. The ideal way to spend your time is something like this. About 90% of it should be enjoyable, comprehensible input. Then you can use that other 10% to look up a quick grammar rule, but only to help make your input even more understandable. Now, here's a critical warning that comes straight from the research. Avoid those typical fill-in-the-blank grammar tests. Why? Think about it. To find the one right answer, you have to read 3 or 4 incorrect sentences. Your subconscious LED doesn't know it's a test. It just absorbs all the input it sees, including the mistakes. You could literally be training your brain with bad grammar without even realizing it. So we've covered the theory, and it's fascinating. But how do we actually put this into practice? Starting tomorrow. Let's build a simple, effective action plan to get that language acquisition device fired up and running. Here are 5 practical strategies you can use to make sure you're feeding your LAD the right stuff. Keep it simple. Slow down the pace. Use repetition. Lean on your mother tongue for support. And use lots of visuals. Let's just zoom in on a couple of the most powerful ones. So for simplicity, start with things like graded readers. These are books that are written with simpler vocabulary and grammar on purpose. And when you're listening to audio or watching a video, don't be afraid to use the playback settings. Slowing it down to 0.75 speed can be the difference between it being confusing noise and perfect, comprehensible input. Using your native language is an amazing support tool, but the goal isn't to translate word for word. It's about front-loading your brain with the story. If you already know the plot of a book or a movie, your brain is totally free to just focus on how the new language is expressing those ideas you already get. So, the takeaway is this. You already have the most sophisticated language learning device ever created built right into your head. Your only job is to feed it with messages that are understandable and, most importantly, enjoyable. So the question is no longer, how do I study? Instead, it's what fun story am I going to give my brain today?